Hello everybody. Hi, my name is Darius Anucauskas and I'm the Chief Market Analyst here at Markets.com. And today is Monday, ladies and gentlemen, the first day of the week, the first Monday of August. So yes, look, I hope July was a good one for you. We're going to look at the markets. We're going to see what's happening this week. Hopefully you'll enjoy the session, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, stay tuned and I'll see you in a bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and good morning. My name is Darius Anucauskas and I'm the Chief Market Analyst here at Markets.com. And today is Monday. Today is Monday, ladies and gentlemen, the first trading day of the new week, the first Monday of August. So yes, I want to welcome you to this session where we're going to look at the markets. We're going to see what's happening this week, yeah, we'll go from there. Look, but before we jump into any action, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So yes, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation and should not be considered as such. This material should not be taken as an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. I'll give you a few seconds to read the rest. I'm not going to disappear anywhere. I'm just going to put my usual good morning in the chat room. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. There we go. Also, just a quick mentioning of our Markets.com website, which you can always check out for more information about us. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist. So, ladies and gentlemen, also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Because we do I do throw out a lot of different videos on different topics, and hey, you might find them useful. Yeah, just about separate events, but also, of course, this live event which I'm hosting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just to let you know that this week I will do Monday and Wednesday. Friday there won't be a session, and then next week there won't be a session at all of neither Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Well, basically, you probably guessed it. I will be on a little bit of a holiday, so yeah, a little bit of family time. So look, yeah, join me today. Join me on Wednesday. And of course, keep your eyes on the little videos that I throw out here in the top news section. Yeah, these are just, like I said, little separate events. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's gold. I will pick up gold. I will pick up on gold in a bit, but of course, as always, we start off with Nikkei 225. And even before that, we will jump into the economic calendar because we need to understand what's happening this week. And we do have a few pieces of information coming out. So look, first of all, let's start off from today. Today we didn't have maybe much, but we had the Swiss inflation number that came out. Look, what's interesting here is that the month-on-month figure, the Swiss inflation came out at 0, basically lower than the previous, but higher than the forecast. The year-on-year number came out much higher than much higher, by 0.1% higher than the previous and the forecast here. So, in a way, we'll take a look at the Swiss franc in a bit. We'll jump into that one, yeah, certainly it's an interesting situation here with the Swiss inflation. It continues to decline, and this is where the Swiss National Bank is also still in that mode of cutting because yeah, they need to cut in order to kind of boost their economy, because again, apparently inflation is showing a slowdown. And look, low inflation, not good. High inflation, not good. You always have to be somewhere like in the middle, right? Or let's say that's where banks determine the target. Let's say 2% inflation target, and we kind of the economy tries to stick to that. So in a way, it kind of shows that a little bit of inflation kind of indicates still growth. There's business happening. But whereas if inflation starts to diminish and continues to remain, let's say near 0, below 0, or something like that, then you might say that not everything is that rosy in the economy. However, still okay. Switzerland is still fine, still plowing through. But yeah. Look, Today, apart from other data factory orders we get from the US, something maybe to keep in mind, a little bit of a market mover could be. But then we'll get during the Asian session, we'll get the BOJ monetary policy meeting minutes from last week, because we know that last week they had the interest rate decision, and that was just flat plus 0.5%, the same as previous. The S&P Global Composite and Services PMIs are coming out, so something to keep in mind if you're trading Japanese yen. At the moment we don't have a forecast, but let me just double check if we don't have a forecast here. Yeah, we don't have a forecast. So basically, yes, the PMIs are coming out. We can see that oh, why there's no data here? Let me just double check another source very quickly. So yep, so Tuesday. Okay, it seems, yeah, this is the GBPUSD Bank Services PMI. So why is it saying to me that it is right? Okay, that's interesting. So it's not the S&P Global. I have another calendar saying that it is the GBPUSD Bank. Let me confirm with the third economic calendar, because again, I keep on saying, ladies and gentlemen, trust but check. Yeah, it's S&P Global. Right, okay. Confusion across so two calendars are telling me that it's S&P Global Services PMI, okay. And the forecast is a little bit on the higher side than the previous. Okay, let's see if that's going to be the case. If we come out higher, this maybe could support the Japanese yen. We'll see, or actually probably will have more support for the Nikkei 225. Going further into the calendar, nothing major household spending in Australia, so we'll have a look at that one. Now the Tizen Composite and Services PMI is coming out from China, so the Services PMI is expected to dip a little bit. Let's see if that's going to be the case. Yep, but yeah, it is expected to drop just by a little bit. Okay, look, again, it's a very tight moment here, because again, if it stays above 50, then maybe the market could see this as a positive. However, if we start dropping below 50, then we'll go into contraction territory. Going into other economic data sets, again, composite and services PMIs from Germany and the Eurozone as a whole, or should I say European Union as a whole. Also from the European Union, we'll get the PPI numbers as well, so keep your eyes on that one. UK new car sales. Now that's an important kind of metric here, because well, UK's car industry is one of the bigger ones, I would say, inside the country. So I think it's a good economic indicator. And in general, if you see an increase in new car sales, that means that the consumer feels confident, the consumer is okay, and yeah, everything is nice and dandy. But if suddenly that declines or starts to decline, well, that's when I think that the governments should start ringing some alarm bells. Well, in general, actually, they should be continuing to monitor the tendency in general, like where, if it is diminishing, then they need to act earlier. But we know that nothing like that these rational things do not happen. Anyway, balance of trade balance basically coming out from the US and Canada on Tuesday, so we'll keep an eye on that together with the same S&P Global Composite and Services PMIs from the US. So also ISM Services PMIs coming out on Tuesday from the US, so keep that in mind. New Zealand labor market news. Yes, unemployment rate coming out is expected to come out higher here, so keep that in mind. In terms of Australia, group index, manufacturing index, yep, there we go. Look, Japan again, or some news here, but I don't think that this is average cash earnings. I mean, I don't think that this is going to be a major market mover, but still. We're going into Wednesday. We're going to, again, like I said in the heading of this video, PMIs this week. So again, construction PMI coming out from the Eurozone and the European Union together with the UK. There we go. Going further again, it's the Canada's composite PMIs. There we go. Again, PMI. This is a PMI week all over. USA, EIA crude oil stock exchange. Now with oil, it's an interesting moment. I'll pick up on that because again, I talk, I kind of, yeah, I mentioned this in my in the image, but it's one of the topics that I want to pick up. Anyway, look, going further. Where's that news? Little piece of news. All right. Okay. So yeah, going further, going into Thursday, Australia trade balance as well coming out. China's trade balance as well coming out later on. After that, we get the German trade balance. So yes, trade and basically trade and PMIs. That's what we're getting. But also, Thursday we're gonna get the BOE interest rate decision, and look at here, look at what we're expecting to see here. Well, we are expecting to see a cut, and look, last time during the last meeting they decided to keep the rate unchanged at 4.25, but now we are looking at a cut. So, okay, look, I'm not going to say anything else. I mean, of course, we're expecting that. So probably the market is pricing in right now the potential cut. We'll see what's happening with the British pound. But yeah, in general, this might not be very positive for the British pound. So keep that in mind. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this right now, if you're tuning in, look, this session is for you asking questions as well, not only me talking but also you asking questions. So feel free, if you do have any, just throw them out there, and I'll try to answer those. So yeah, going further. Oh, by the way, in terms of the BOE, let me just double check. So if there are changes, 8 members are in favor of the cut, comparing to previous time 3 only, and unchanged 1 person. So okay, so yeah, it's most likely is going to be a cut. But what's interesting going to be is that, you know, if it's not going to be, let's say 9, or like, you know, MPC members who are in favor of the cut will probably be maybe like 9 or something. Then yeah, okay, it's not a major shift, however, because we already are expecting a cut. So I think that the cut itself could be the more interesting one. Initial and continuous jobless claims, yep, coming out in the US. Yeah, some used car prices, okay. IVPMI, there we go. If you're trading something Canadian dollar related, so keep your eyes on the IVPMI. That is expected to decline by a little bit. Going into Friday, it's going to be a relatively quiet day, I think, apart from some Canadian numbers here. But unless you're trading something CAD related, then yeah, that's going to be quite interesting. But other than that, I think it could be a little bit on the on the cautious side. And look, on Saturday we're going to get the Chinese inflation numbers. Now that's going to be interesting, but I'll pick up on that. I'm not going to pick up on that next week, because next week I'm not going to be here. So, well, maybe I'll pick up later. We'll see if there's a major shift or something like that. Then yeah, then it's going to be worth mentioning. Anyway, coming back into the charts. So looking at this, Nikkei 225 pushing back up, or at least trying to do so. And I talked about this little short-term upside line before, and I said that if we do somehow push and stay above it, push and stay below it, then yes, I'm going to go further south. And at the moment, what we're seeing here is that we had a move, but it was so close here, and then today we're seeing a reversal. Look, I think, you know, really what I really want to do here, I have all these lines, but I think it's Monday, and I think we need to start fresh. I think we will bring some levels back, of course. For example, the all-time high here, the 42,493. That's on the cash index, on my cash index. So you could have slightly different numbering, but again, so this is the highest point of July here, near the 42,077. Look, in general, the numbers here, exact numbers, don't really matter much, because it's the area we're always kind of aiming for, or targeting, you know, or considering. It's never, as I keep on saying, it's never the level, it's the area around that level. So yeah, after we failed to reach a new all-time high, we reversed back down, and the question now is, can we drop below this 39,119 zone on my chart? That's the low of the 16th of July. Look, at the same time, I'm keeping an eye on the 50-day EMA right here. So look, I can draw the upside line again. You know, maybe it's, you know, it could could be a good one here. Maybe it's a good line, but it's very tentative. I mean, actually, you know what? Maybe it's not a very tentative because we have some touches here. We have some respect. So this little minor hiccup, let's call it this way, it could be ignored. But probably the more important issue here is that, okay, we're rebounding, wonderful. But can we push back above, somewhere above this 40,000 kind of 855 territory? Now that's a good question, but actually I think the better option here is to keep an eye on this downside line. So in general, this whole combo, a break of this little hurdle and a break of this downside line could do the trick for a few more buyers instead. And yep, we could kind of go from there. Yeah, we'll take it from there, of course, but for now, this is how it is. And we're keeping an eye on this. We're waiting for some clarity on the next move. China 50, yes, keeping an eye on this one. Again, similar story. I'm going to remove everything and start fresh. I'll try not to overcomplicate too much with the barriers and levels and everything like that. But what I'll say is that somehow this is doing a good job here. This 720, something like that is ish. I think it's more of a 700 low, 675. There we go. Yes. So I think this is the more important level right now, but I think that the 50-day EMA is even more important because look at this. Yes, we had a violation of it, but kind of a false breakout just in a way. So long story short, if we were looking for some lower levels on this one, then certainly, yes, a drop below this 50-day EMA and this 13,675 territory would be required. Then we'll aim for the 100 and the 200-day EMAs. And after that, if we do see that fall, then I'll target this little territory right here, which at this time could coincide nicely with the 200-day EMA. So yeah, keep that in mind. Jumping into the US, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay. Last week's Friday, we saw a nice decline, but the thing is that the decline didn't only happen on Friday; it happened throughout the whole week. Basically, we're declining. Look at this: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There we go. Well, okay, this is another thing. All-time high. We hit an all-time high here on the cash index. On the main index, let me just have a look. We failed to reach an all-time high, and that's the interesting bit for me. So the cash index, yes, great and wonderful, but the main index, we failed. Look, I'll go back into the cash index. In general, I said it before and I'll say it again. Whenever we go for a new all-time high, we hit a new all-time high, but then we failed to close above the previous all-time high, then that for me is a bit of a worrying signal. And this is exactly what happened on Monday. Look at this. We started selling off crazy, and then on Friday the whole tariff thing exploded again, and honestly, like, it is now, it's I keep on. I for a while now. I have been saying, and I can see now some news outlets also picking up on the same idea. What I was saying before, like when the whole tariff thing started, is that it seems like you're threatening first with some big tariffs, and then you're kind of thinking that everybody will panic and we will agree on something smaller, because the initial goal actually was to impose that from 10 to 20% tariff, on everybody. So, it's you threaten that you're going to impose these ridiculous 80, 70, and whatever percent, but then, you eventually kind of calm down and, actually, you threaten, everybody starts to talking to you, and everybody comes to you like, hey, let's do this, and that, and then you're happy because your initial goal was to do this 10 to 15%, 10 to 20%, in some cases even higher. But look, what can I say? I mean, The Art of the Deal, if you have read that in that book. But look, I will say this way. For now, I think that until this leadership is in power, I think the whole world will just comply. once I think that the new leadership comes in, and something tells me it could be the opposite now, the Democrats, and if they come in, I think that they will just get rid of those tariffs again, and or again, maybe not, maybe because the whole society will be kind of used to tariffs, so paying higher prices, then yeah. But if it's going to be a massive uproar, then yeah, they will remove those. But again, for now, for the next 3.5 years or something like that, then I think that the tariffs are here to stay. I think that that's going to be the case. It bring a little bit of an economic slowdown? Yes. But I think the whole point is that because the U.S. is quite cash rich, and they can kind of they can take in the negative shocks of the economy, potential negative shocks from these tariffs. They can kind of take in, whereas some countries, that would be a little bit of a devastating moment for them. So basically, when you're making someone a little bit more poor, they're becoming a little bit more submissive. We'll see how it goes, of course. Going into, by the way, in terms of technical picture here, look, I will say it this way. As long as if we do drop again below the 50-day EMA and we stay below it, I'm going to go further south. S&P 500, similar story. I'm still bearish. We dropped below this hurdle of mine. I talked about it, 6333, and then I was targeting the 6200. Boom, fantastic. Now if we can clear the 6200, I'll go lower. NASDAQ, similar story, and we fell below the 23,261, so I will continue targeting the downside for now. However, the problem I have here is this upside line, which is a little bit not far, so if we do clear it, then okay, great. I'll go further south, but if we don't, then yeah, okay, like it's gonna be, look, for me, the upside scenario is going to be somewhere from this on a push back above the 23,261 territory, and then we'll go from there. Look, like I said, keep your eyes on those PMIs. Those are coming out this week from everywhere, and the US including. So we'll see how that plays out. The dollar index, boom, didn't really like the job numbers, right? If you've missed it, honestly, it was something. Look, where's that? Friday? There we go. So non-farm payrolls came out at 73 against the 110, but that wasn't the problem. The problem, and I keep on saying this to people, everybody, to look, always don't forget to always keep an eye on the previous figure, because the previous figure, if you remember, was 147. It got revised to 14,000. Like, I mean, how are you calculating all this? And we saw the firing of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics head. This is kind of, can I say, this is a little bit of a tricky moment, because it's kind of sending shockwaves. Not to mention that he's already naming the new Fed chair. Again, I think that this whole show of firing the BLS, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, is that to make a show. Look, I mean, look what I can do with you, right? I mean, either you cut rates, or you might fly. So this is, I think that this is what they're doing. But to be honest, the market is not going to like that. I'll be honest. The market is not going to be like that, because look, in this society, in this world where we have craziness in every corner, the little kind of safe haven probably is the Fed, for the U.S. market, and that's why it's if you're going to mess around with the supposedly independent institution. Why I'm saying supposedly, because okay, look, don't get me wrong, the Fed is gonna is formed by the top U.S. banks, and so in a way, not the most it's not a government institution, first of all. However, it shares some privileges of the government institution, but it's not a government institution. It's a private entity, actually. Anyway, you can look into this, but you can basically what still the Fed is kind of seen as the safe, like I already mentioned, that the safe haven, the go-to place for some sanity. And at the moment, when you see that the political party, the current political party, is threatening the sanity, then it's not that I'm not against the current political party, or I'm a favor of the other one. No, I'm not in favor of any. I'm in favor of morale a little bit, So I'm in favor of market. I'm an economist. I mean, I favor, market trade. I value that. When politics start getting in the way too much, they always get in the way. But when it's too much, then it's a little bit of a, the market becomes unstable. So yeah, the U.S. dollar didn't like the data last Friday. It declined, but we held nicely above the 50-day EMA, so we're stalling now. Look, I said it before, I'll say it again. If we need to see a push again above this, we need to see a push to the upside. A push above the 100-day EMA is required. Let's jump into the German index DAX, ladies and gentlemen. Sell off, boom, fantastic. I told you that we were in this little range. Or some of you might probably say, but hey, Darius, maybe we're in a descending triangle pattern. Yeah. Fair enough. We could be. Doesn't matter. Still, we got a breakout. I was happy with this hurdle here, this 23,922. Boom, fantastic, wonderful. We got the clearance, and now the question is, how far are we going to retrace? Are we going to retrace all the way to the 50-day EMA, or is this just going to be a little retracement here? And look, I will draw my Fibonacci retracement. We did already the 23.6 here. Let's see why I'm drawing it this way, because it was a straight decline. Without any days of recovery, so it was a straight decline. So I'm drawing this one a short-term retracement on the Fibonacci here, and look, it could travel back to 38.2 around the 23,780 zone. I will consider that move if we do push above the 23.6 here. But certainly, yes, if we are looking at some lower levels, then if this is enough already, then if you're kind of still scared a little bit what to do here, I would say you can wait for a drop below last week's low, and then kind of aim for the downside. Oh, excuse me, for the downside. Let's jump into the UK. Of course, for UK, it's very important. We're stuck here because this week is very important because we have the BoE. So we're keeping an eye on this, and we're keeping an eye on these barriers here. So I'm waiting for the clearance of the one of the sides here. I talked about this last week. Either a push above the 9,175 territory right here on the upside, or a drop below the 9,041 zone right here on the downside, and then we'll go from there. Let's jump into the world of commodities. Gold. Look at this. Look how gold enjoyed the moment on Friday. Look, the gold bulls were just happy all over the place, right? I mean, look at this. They just rallied here very quickly, and just took some resistance levels. Just come not, this is like I said, this is just spectacular, and cleared some of the levels. Look. I'm kind of considering a little bit of a larger correction. I would really love to see a correction back down, maybe towards this 3,000 kind of 35, 34 zone. I think it's a good one here, and then a rebound and a push back to the upside. Because let's face it, the moment, my question is, if these two trend lines are gonna do the trick here, then okay, look, I mean, fantastic. It would be a great hold up and a push back down. But if we jumped back above the 50-day EMA, and we're currently staying above the 3,334 territory right here, if we continue to trade above that, then I'm leaning towards the upside. So long story short, I am very careful for now. We're seeing a little bit of a retracement, which is fine, which is healthy. Let's see, if we can stall, if we can remain above this 50-day EMA. If we start falling below the 50-day EMA, I'm leaning towards the downside. Silver is, looks a little bit more bearish, to be honest, but you know what? I'm going to take a very, very careful approach. I'll wait for a drop below the 36.20 zone, somewhere around here. If we do fall below that, I will go to the downside. If we're looking for some higher levels, then look, I would say this way, a push above the 37.89 zone here could do the trick for a few more buyers. Let's get rid of this trend line, no longer needed. Actually, we can reuse it, we can recycle it. Always recycle, ladies and gentlemen. There's a hidden message for you there. We can do something like this. This is a downside line, and hey, if we continue to trade below it, I think it's a good call for the downside. But if you're a little bit on the skeptical side, if you're cautious, then wait for at least for a drop below the 36.20 zone, because this would confirm a forthcoming lower low. Palladium is holding nicely above this upside line, taken from the low of the 30th of May. This is a short-term upside support line, but it's a good one, I think. If you're looking for some lower levels, wait for at least a break of that upside line, and then we could drop below the 1179 zone right there. A drop below the 50-day EMA as well also could do the trick for a few more sellers. For the upside, now this is where the tricky moment comes in. I would like to wait for a push back above the 1250, but at the same time, also a break of this downside line right here. I think all the stars could align perfectly, and I think that this break could come together with that break. Again, let's see. Platinum, ladies and gentlemen, again, beautiful decline. Look, to me, this is tricky. Although I'm cautiously bearish. I'm cautiously bearish on this, but still, I would like to see a drop back below the 50-day EMA, so just to be a little bit more on the safe side. For the upside, a push above the 1,400 zone here could be nice, and then we'll take it from there. Copper is still bearish for me. Look, if you missed the news, I mean, I talked about it last week, but if you haven't watched any of my videos, but basically I talked about this and I said that this was interesting. This was one of the biggest market manipulations ever. So initially you threatened to impose 50% tariff on all imported copper. Everybody rushes to purchase copper from the copper exporting countries like Chile, Australia, and then on the last day, you're saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to actually remove the copper tariffs on scrap copper, but on semi-finished copper, I will put the tariff. So, and you imagine this, like everybody was rushing in the next, like in 2 weeks, everybody was rushing to get all that copper into the country under those previous tariffs, on the previous prices, on let's say on those prices, on the lower prices. Before the tariff kicks in, everybody was, bringing in copper, and now you brought in, from what I read recently, like it was around like 1 year worth of copper they brought in, and now they said, oh, you know what, we're not going to put a tariff on. You're now, as a company who brought in the copper, you're now stuck with a lot of copper inside the country. Demand is still the same, it hasn't increased, but demand is still the same. You just brought more. And now you need to worry about warehousing as well. So about safety of that copper, because let's face it, nobody canceled stealing still. Anyway, yeah, this is, like I said, this is where the issue. And now there's increase of supply of copper. Of course, prices have dropped, and you imagine this. Not only that you're having costs of storing it, but you're also having costs of you're buying somewhere around here, now you're here. Okay, a little bit of a bummer, I would say. But anyway, that's how the current atmosphere, in the economy works. So I think we need to kind of understand that. Oil, my favorite oil. Now look, OPEC Plus comes out. OPEC Plus comes out and says that, in September, we're going to raise our output by, as it's written here, 547,000 barrels per day. Right. Okay. So yeah, initially we had a rally, but then look at this, it quickly stabilized, and that's why I kept on saying last week as well. For I don't know, like for a year I have been saying, not for another year, for half a year have been saying I'm still somewhat overall bearish on oil, because Yeah, there we go. Boom, to the downside. And look, I will stick to my guns here and I will say that if we do fall below all my EMAs, I'm going to lean towards more downside, but my preference is the $65 mark. So if we do fall below the $65 mark, then yes, great, more sellers could join in. Natural gas is at an interesting spot here. The psychological 3 level, I'm waiting for a clearance of that one in order to go to the downside, and then we'll take it from there. So yep, long story short, for now, watching this psychological 3 level, and if we can break that, we'll go lower. For the upside, I need a break of this downside line, period. And then we'll have to deal with the EMAs. We'll see how that plays out. Very quickly on coffee, just a quick glance, falling back below the 290 zones, a little bit looking bearish, but I'll get more bearish if we do fall below the 277. Cocoa, okay, cocoa still, it broke the upper side of the falling channel I talked about previously, but it's struggling with the EMAs. Look, nothing is lost yet for the bulls. Still there is a chance, but we need to clear those EMAs. Wheat continues to slide nicely. Ooh, that's interesting. So wheat is dropping. Look, 506 is the barrier. This is what I'm watching. If we fall below that barrier, if we fall below that 506, then we're going into into levels around COVID time here. So yeah, this is not looking very bullish for wheat futures. Let's see if this 500 level holds. Sugar, very quickly. Sugar is stalling here again. It's not really very bullish as well, but it's holding on nicely here. So 16.06 is something that I'm watching here for the upside. 16.79 is also something that I want to keep an eye on. Cotton is has dropped below my hurdle here, below the 60. Let's round it up here, 67. And yep, it's opening the door to that 65, 64 levels. Let's see if we can travel there. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the Forex world very quickly. AUDUSD. So, a bit of recovery, yes. Look, am I very bullish here? I don't know, no. And what I really want to do here is actually, I want to remove everything and start fresh. Because, look, we fell below all my EMAs. And we're currently stalling around those EMAs. And, yep, basically, for now, it's a tricky one here. 0.6418 is something that I'm watching, and yep, if we do drop below that, then I'll go to the downside. Then of course there's a bunch of other little hurdles that could stall here, but certainly we're being very careful, going step by step here. But I think at this point, if you're looking for some lower levels, just wait for a drop below last week's low, and then there'll be a little bit of a safer option for the upside. A push above all the EMAs here on the daily chart could attract more buyers into the game here, and then we can actually travel back up here maybe towards the highest point of July. AUDNZD continues to push higher. Okay, that's fine. So I think I'm going to stick to the upside scenario. Also, especially if we push above this barrier here as well, the 1.0988 zone, or in general, the psychological 1.10 zone. If we clear that, great, more buyers could join in. AUDJPY. Now, this one's our risk on, risk off monitor, and we're seeing a decline, of course, because the stock market is, I wouldn't say collapsing, but it is not feeling the love right now. I'll say it this way, that if you're looking for some higher levels, I think it's very obvious. Let's wait for a clearance of this 97.32 zone. I think that could be a bit of a better option here right now. If you're looking for some lower levels, then I think that the better option, of course, is to wait for a drop below the 94.83 zone. And if we do fall below all the EMAs, then yes, great, I'll go for the downside. NZD/USD. Beautiful decline, beautiful drop below this upside line. We tested beautifully my highlighted area right here. Amazing. I'm very happy. Yeah, now it's very simple. Basically, if you're looking for some lower levels, wait for clearance of this highlighted zone, which is roughly around the 0.5846, 53 areas, roughly around here. So if we clear that, I will go to the downside. At the moment, yes, there is a chance for this happening, but don't forget that there is also a good option here for the upside. However, if you're looking for some higher levels on this, then yep, a break of this downside line would be required. I think it's, look, this whole area right here could be a little bit of a tricky one. If you're comfortable in trading this area, be my guest. You know, you do whatever is best for you, but I'm not comfortable. I'd rather wait for a break of this downside line. NZDJPY, beautiful decline as well, dropped below my 87.50 zone right here, so great. I'm still bearish on this one, but only if we do fall right now below the 100-day EMA. USDJPY. USDJPY and beautiful decline. I think the market, like I said, it was a good combo. The stock market was selling off. The dollar didn't love the numbers of the job number, the NFP numbers, and yes, Japanese yen kind of took the reins of the safe haven again. And there we go, broom, 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 broom to the downside. There we go. Look, wiping out all the week's gains, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, true, exactly, in one day. So, okay. Ended the week in negative territory. I think nice false breakout here on this through the upper side of this little rising wedge pattern. So in general, I'm considering a little possible move back up here, but I'm going to be a little bit more on the careful side. I would rather wait. You know, I'll say it this way: if we stay below the 200-day EMA, I'm leaning towards the downside. But if we stay above it, there is a chance for a little bit of a retracement higher. USDCAD, USDCAD, beautiful reversal. Of course, the weakness of the US dollar kicked in here. Look, I think it's an easy option here if we do push above the 200-day EMA, because once again the 200-day EMA proved itself to be a strong area of resistance. If we push above it, I'll go to the upside. If we can't, if we fall below the 50-day EMA, I'll go a little bit lower. USDCHF, beautiful move here, beautiful rebound. Look, I'll say it this way: for the upside, I need to see a break of the downside line. I talked about this one, and did I get that break? No, well, no, not really. Well, I got a false breakout here, but that doesn't really work here for me. I need a a larger, stronger move here. Push above the 0.8156. That could be the better option here to go for some higher levels. But basically, I'm just waiting for a break of the downside line, and I would need to see the body of the daily candle kind of staying above that area. For the downside, a break of this upside line, yes, wonderful, could be the case. But for the the better option is to drop below the lowest point of July, and then we'll go from there. Let's have a look at the euro, ladies and gentlemen. The euro USD, beautiful recovery here. Look at this. After a decline on Friday, sorry, not decline. Yeah, decline on Wednesday, we recovered on Friday because the US dollar declined. We pushed back above the 50-day EMA. Okay, interesting. I think if we continue to trade above that 50-day EMA, yes, I'm going to continue. I will aim for the upside, but my upside will be limited to this little downside line right here, taken from the highest point of July, and then we'll go from there. For now, I'm just going to aim for this. This upside line needs to go, no longer needed, but the downside scenario is actually going to be from around here somewhere. This 1.14, I think it's a good level. It also could coincide with the 100-day EMA, so basically a break of all those two could attract a few more sellers into the game. EUROJPY stabilized a little bit, but to be honest, it's getting messy. So let's remove everything, and it's getting messy a little bit. So let's see if this is going to work. If the Fibonacci here is going to do something. Yeah, it's not the best option here. No, it's no. This is one of those moments. I love Fibonacci, but not now. Yeah, look, I mean, I think the better option here is for the upside is to wait for a pop above the 173.90 zone. Then we could go for the highest point of July of 2024. But for the downside, a drop below the 169.72. Yep. At the same time, maybe if we could fall below the 50-day EMA, maybe that could be an interesting option here for the downside. While we're trading here, nope, I'm not touching this one. It's way too tricky. GBPUSD, beautiful test of the 200-day EMA on Friday. Look at this, amazing. So that just kind of points to me that there is a scenario for the downside, honestly. Like if we do break that 200-day EMA and we clear this 1.31 kind of 39 zone, if we clear it and we clear the 200-day EMA, I'm going lower. But this is a very strong area of support. We need to wait for some sort of like I said, a clearance here. For the upside, am I getting very positive with the upside? No, not really. Why? Because we have this downside line right now. We have all the EMAs, so in a way, I need a clearance. I need a clearance of this downside line, and then we could just kind of take it from there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, look, long story short, I would say this way, that for now, if we do, like I said, while we remain in this area right here, I'm just observing the price action and not really touching much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the crypto world for dessert. Yes, Bitcoin. I am very happy. I talked about this. Look, you can check out my crypto update here. I talked this was on Friday. I talked about it, and I am very happy. Mission accomplished because my target was the 112 territory right here. Boom. That I was aiming for this when I said that if we do fall below the 116, that's what I'm going to aim for. There we go. We also tested the upside line here, which is drawn from the lowest point of April. Now we're seeing this little rebound. Let's see if this is going to happen. But you know what? For me to be a little bit more on the safe side now, I want to see a push back above the 116 zone. So basically, I'm leaving this whole area for just kind of a random walk. If we push back above the 116, I will go to the upside. For the downside, I would like to see a drop below the 112 territory here, and then yeah, we could go from there. So long story short, while we remain in between the 112 and 116, I will just kind of stay, just kind of observe the price action. If we do pop above the 116, then yes, great, I'll go for some higher levels. BCH, Bitcoin Cash, so beautiful rebound back up here. It came very close to testing the 50-day EMA shown as the green line, but yeah, it stalled somewhere above it. You know what, actually, I'm out of curiosity, I'm curious, which one is it? Is it the 40-day EMA, which kind of provided good support? Yeah, in a way, 40-day EMA is a good one here on BCH USD. Well, look, can I say? It's subjective, everything is subjective in a way. So it's subjective, so just do whatever, you're comfortable with. Long story short, am I getting bullish on this one? No, unless it starts pushing back above the 563 territory. If it does that, then yes, great, more buyers here could join in. For the downside, I would like to see a drop below this lower side of the rising channel, and then also a drop below this 513-14 zone ish. So yeah, this is how all the stars could align for me here. Ethereum 3,550 right now roughly, but basically it's a little bit of a mess. I think it's time to remove all the drawings and have a fresh look. Long story short, is this the all-time high? No, not really. Are we kind of going somewhere here? Well, look, this area, 4,100, is something that I'm watching in a way. But, we got a hold up here somewhere. Is this like a significant level where we got a hold up? No, not really, to be honest. So that's why I'm kind of not excluding the downside scenario yet. And I don't want to rush into things. I will go for some higher levels if we do push above the 3,568 here. Then yes, great, more buyers here could join in. We could target the 3,941 zone right here, which is the highest point of July, and then we'll go from there. But for now, just let's deal with this little area, this 3,568-ish, roughly. If it holds, then we'll keep an eye on the 3,357. If that gets cleared, my next target is the 50-day EMA, and then we'll go from there. Ripple is is at an interesting spot here as well, and Ripple is, well, pushing back up, trying to, at least, after finding good support near the 50-day EMA. So that's why the 50-day EMA, shown as the green line, will become my barrier for the downside. If we can clear that, I will go to the downside, yes. If we're looking for some higher levels right now, then, well, I think a break of this downside line is needed. And yep, if we can get that move, can get that break above the downside line, I think we could start seeing some potential upside here. But look, I'll say it this way: as long as we stay above the psychological 3 level, I will continue targeting the upside, and if we also break the downside line. But I'll aim only for the 3.40 zone-ish right here. Why? Because it's a good area of resistance. I mean, previously it was, and I don't want to exclude that. For the downside, I would like to see a drop, as I said, below the 50-day EMA, and then I'll go lower. Litecoin pushing back up, but am I getting very bullish? No, I need a break of this downside line taken from the highest point of December of 2024. For the downside, another drop below the 106.61 could do the trick for a few more sellers. Yes, Dogecoin, it's still sitting below all the EMAs on my daily chart here, so I think that we're not really done with the downside yet. Polkadot, getting a little bit of a rebound, that's fine, but let's see if we can, if we can continue to trade below the below my EMAs right here. If that's the case, then great, more sellers here could join in. This upside line no longer needed. I think we need to mark the downside line, the steep downside line. If we do clear the steep downside line, I think that this is where we could go for some higher levels. So at this point, I'm watching this, so keep that in mind. And finally, Tron, one of my favorite ones. Okay, we violated this upside line, but to be honest, is this like, is the 0.32 area is a good support area? Yes, it is. So we are rebounding right now. We're pushing back above this upside line, so great. Am I getting very, very bullish? No. Why? Because I need to wait for a break above the 0.3439 zone right here. Look, I know it seems to be like a bullish case. Look, if you're comfortable with this, then you can do whatever you want, but I don't like when it's like it could go a little bit higher, fail to reach some of these highs, and then reverse back down. If this is one of your strategies you can do, yeah, feel free to, as I said, do whatever you want. But it's just that remember that we might not actually go too much up. But is it rebounding from the upside line? Yes, it is. So we need to see a little bit of a move here a little bit higher for me to get maybe a little bit more comfortable with the upside. But I'm not excluding the downside in the scenario as well, in case maybe the US dollar starts strengthening again very, very strongly, very much, and we could see this one reversing back down. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. That is a wrap. Thank you very much for watching, listening. I really appreciate your time. Look, ladies and gentlemen, join me on Wednesday. This is going to be the last one for this week before I go on holiday, and then I'm going to come back on the 18th of August. So basically, look, join me again on Wednesday as usual, the usual time. Check out the time. It's 6 o'clock GMT time, but yeah, check your when is it your time. But you can always subscribe. You can always subscribe to our channel in order not to miss out on the the action. And hopefully you enjoy the videos that I do. Let me know in the comments if you do. But thank you very much for your time, your views, your likes, your comments, everything. Fascinating. I love it, and really helps. As always, stay safe, have your stop losses in place, risk only what you can afford to lose, don't overtrade, and everything will be fine. And I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye for now.